Over the next 3 weeks, or 4, we will be doing Kabbalah, but we're going to zero in on a specific Mamar, discourse, Hasidic discourse, that was delivered by the Rebbe in 1954, on Yud Shvat, on the 10th day of Shvat, on his father's father-in-law Yortzeit, previous Rebbe. Now this Mamar, this discourse, is based on the discourse that the previous Rebbe himself published before he passed away. And in that discourse, it's divided in 4 sections. Each section has 5 chapters, a total of 20. What the Rebbe went ahead and did was, on every anniversary of the Yortzeit, he elaborated on another chapter. So it took him 20 years to finish the elaboration on the previous Rebbe's discourse. And then when the 20 years was over, he started again. So we today have close to 40 discourses of Basi. We're over 40 discourses of Basi Legani. It starts with the verse Basi Legani, which is "I came to my garden," which is a verse in the Song of Songs from King Solomon. And in it, the previous Rebbe discusses the ultimate purpose for the creation of the world, the ultimate purpose for the Jewish people, and how to accomplish this. And it's a fantastic, fantastic series of discourses. And every year we learn the discourse that fits that corresponds to that year. So if 1954, so then 1974, we do that 4th chapter again. 1994, we do that chapter again. And 2014, we do that chapter again. Yud Shvat will be the first week of, it's always the first month of. So we're going to do that discourse that the Rebbe said in 1954. It's a very, very fantastic Mamar. I learned it on Shabbos 2 times, just to get it, to have an understanding, a better understanding of it. And I'm proud to share with you this discourse. And I would suggest that for the next 4 weeks, you should make an attempt to come back. And if not, our good friend Barry here will send out the webcast. I mean the video. Now, as it's interesting that if you come on Sunday morning, we're learning now the Geras HaTshuva. We're learning Tanya, the 12 chapters where the Alter Rebbe discusses the issue of what real tshuva, repentance is. And over there, in the 5th and 6th chapters, the Alter Rebbe discusses, 4th, 5th, and 6th, discusses the neshama. That the neshama is a rope, a cord, that connects the Jew to Hashem. It's like a rope. The top part is connected to God, the bottom part is connected to the Jew, and the rope itself is the neshama, made up of 613 strands. And each strand corresponds to another mitzvah, and when you, God forbid, do a terrible sin, so you weaken the connection. If you do those sins for which you get chorus, God forbid, excision, that's when the whole rope is disconnected. So so it's in this discourse he discusses that as well. So you ready?
I'm ready.
It's in Hebrew, so I will read the Hebrew and I will do my best to translate, and I will explain everything as best as I can. Okay? Basi Legani Achaisi Kal, I came, King Solomon says, in the name of Hashem. I came to my garden, my bride, my sister, my bride. The Jewish, referring to the Jewish people. What does it mean, I came to my garden? The Medrash says regarding this verse, Legani Legununi, L'mokum shoyi ikar dirasi, when it says, I came to my garden, it doesn't say I came to a garden. It says I came to my garden, which means that this is being God's at some point. Now, this verse is referring to the revelation at Mount Sinai when God gave the Torah to the Jewish people. And on that, God refers to it as I came to my garden, because it says over there in the account of the Torah, the revelation of the Torah, it says that God descended onto Mount Sinai. He came down to earth. And that God calls this earth, he calls his garden, his bridal chamber, his most intimate space, which tells you that God considers this his place, and not because at Mount Sinai he came here for the first time. He's been here before. And that's why he refers to it as my place. I've been here before, and I came back. Why is this referred to God's place? Because the main dwelling of God was down here on earth. When God created the world, he was here. His presence was, the Shekhinah, the godly presence was felt here, was present here, and then something terrible happened, for which reason he withdrew from the earth. What were those things? But then, because of the sin of this tree of knowledge, when Adam ate from the tree, together with Eve, and that sin of the tree of knowledge is the beginning and source of all other sins. That gave room, and that gave an ability for all future sins of every one of us. So it's basically because of sin that God was removed from this earth. That's what removed the Shekhinah, God's presence, from our earth to the first heaven. There are 7 heavens, and this was a major move, major withdrawal, where he withdrew from this earth up to heaven. To which heaven? The first heaven. And then came another 6 successive, very basic and serious sins, which removed God from one level to the next, all the way to the 7th level, 7th heaven. But then it began to reverse it. So then came a series of 7 tzaddikim, 7 righteous holy men, beginning with Avram, and he drew down the Shekhinah from the 7th heaven to the 6th heaven, right? And they brought it all the way back down. Who was the 7th? Until came the 7th came, and who was? And the 7th are always the best, the cherished, the most cherished. The Medrash says the cherished, the 7th, all 7th are cherished. The 7th day, the 7th year, the 7th, every 7th is cherished. And Moshe was the 7th of this series of tzaddikim, and he accomplished this great reunion of God and earth, which was when God came down to Mount Sinai when he gave the Torah. And that's the ultimate purpose of all of creation, that God should be brought down and be present in our earth, in our world. This is also the meaning of the verse. You shall make me a sanctuary, and I will dwell within them. It doesn't say within it, but within them, even though we're talking about one temple. So why does it say in them? So he explains. It's through the tzaddikim who will inherit the world to come. Their share in the world to come, because tzaddikim adei avidas mashkinim mamshichim chineshei chanad shalachein yirshu oretz azinatze v'shachante b'seichem b'seich kol echad v'yechad. The holy men, the holy tzaddikim, the righteous Jews, they cause, through their divine service, they accomplish that God's loftiest level of presence should be drawn down and feel at home on this physical earth, right here amongst us in the world that we live in. And then, when that happens, they accomplish the ultimate goal of making a dwelling place for God down here, and not only down here in one place, but in the heart of every single one of us. In other words, every single one of us has the ability to bring God into our life, into our homes, into our presence. But who accomplishes this ability? Through the tzaddikim we have that power. But the point is to bring God down here to earth. Now, how do we accomplish that God should be present in our world? It's through the specific divine service of what's called in the vernacular of Kabbalah and Hasidus, iskafia. Iskafia means to break and to subdue the negative, the evil side. That is what does it. When a person breaks his passion, breaks his desire, breaks his ego, breaks his self-centeredness, and does what Hashem wants, that is what causes God's light, God's presence to be felt here on earth. The previous Rebbe, in his discourse, explains that what level of God is brought down to earth when we subdue evil. It's not just a lower level, basic level. We're talking about a level of God that is so lofty, that is completely beyond our worlds. It is so infinite that it is beyond the ability to be enclosed in our world in a personal on a personal level. There are two levels of God. We spoke about this many times. There's a level of God that's called Memalek Almin, which is the God that fills the world. To give you an example of this, I always give the example of the soul and the body. Our soul is enclosed in our body, correct? But there are two levels of our soul. Let's take, for example, a person who is a 20-year-old, robust, healthy individual. He's alive, yeah? You look at him, that's a living individual. Then you go into a hospital room, God forbid, and you see a person laying over there, his eyes closed and comatose. In a coma, God forbid. Person alive? He's absolutely alive. He's not dead. He's alive. Is he as alive as the person that's healthy, the 20-year-old robust individual? As alive. He's just, as far as life goes, he's as alive. But there is a very big difference between these two individuals. What is the difference? The difference is in the second level of the connection of the soul and the body. The soul and the body's connection is on two levels. One is a general connection that gives the body life, that makes the body alive. The head and the toe is equal. But then there's a part of the soul that is more tailored to the different bodily parts. So in the eyes, a specific life force of the soul encloses itself, which cannot be enclosed in the ear or in the hand. In the hand is the power of movement. In the eye is the soul's power of sight. In the ears, the soul power of hearing. And in the feet, the soul power of walking. Those are very different. That life force is a much lower life force than the first one. The first one is the general life force of the soul that makes the body alive. That part is in the brain just as is it in it's all over equally. The brain is alive, the feet are alive everywhere. Every part of the body is alive. But then there is the part of the soul that is lower, that's already tailors itself to the specific organs of the body, and over there, that means that's the part of the soul that encloses itself on a personal level to each specific limb. That's a lower level. With God is the same thing. This God, as He encloses Himself in this physical world, in every created being individually. He gives life to the stone, He gives life to the tree, He gives life to the mountain, He gives life to the human, He gives life to the animal. and each one's a different type of life force. In the human, there's more life force of God than in the animal. In the animal, there's more than in the vegetable. In the vegetable, there's more than in the stone. But then there's a life force. And then within the worlds alone, there's the highest world is much more. The lower world is more. Our world is less. There's differences within the world, between worlds, and within our world alone, there's differences. In the stone, there's much less than in the human. But that is when you talk about God's life force as it's lowered and tailored to the specific individual created beings. But then that's Memala Kalam, the God that fills the world and clothes himself in the world. But then there's a life force of God that is what we call Seviv Kalam, and he encompasses all worlds. What does encompass mean? He's everywhere equally. In Atzilis, and down here equally. Just like we said in the life force of the soul, there's the general energy of the soul that causes the person to be alive. That part of the soul is in his whole body equally. So the Friedrich, previous Rebbe, says that when a Jew subdues his evil, that's specific. Divine service of subduing evil, subduing your ego, and so on and so forth, that causes that God's presence should be felt in our world. But he adds here an important point. What level of Hashem does he draw down into our world? Not the lower level, Memala Kolam. He draws down the higher level, the Seviv Kolam, that encompassing level. The greatest level of Hashem is now present in our world. Huh? And that's what the Medrash means, that the main part of the Shekhinah, the essence of the Shekhinah, that higher level was down here then, and we bring it back here now with the Aveda, with the service of subduing evil. So in Mishkan Mikdash. And this was the purpose of the tabernacle and the holy temple, Vaveda Shabem, and everything that went on, all the different services that were done there. Shikoru Avedis Korbanos, Ubefrati Nakteris, Shaldeis Iskafit Sitrach Rechul. And what was one of the main services in the temple was that of animal sacrifices. Every day they brought in the morning a sheep, in the afternoon a sheep, and many in between. Personal sacrifices, communal sacrifices, all kinds. What was the whole idea of the sacrifices? The subduing of the evil. The animal is your own animal. When you brought the physical animal on the altar, what was supposed to really be done was for you to bring your own animal. What's your animal? Your animalistic drives, which is your ego, the negative. The idea is to slaughter the negative within you. So that was the whole purpose of the Beis Hamikdash. This is also the reason why the tabernacle was made of acacia wood. You don't know why?
I don't get it.
Key, because you'll get it soon. Rabbi says over here like this. In order for you to subdue evil, you have to have evil. Right? You can't subdue evil if you're not going to give the evil the opportunity to raise its ugly head. So in order to be able to subdue evil, you need evil. What is evil? Within a person. We're talking about within the person. All evil is within us. There's no... What? Where does the ability for evil come from within the human being?
Ego.
Through Nasadea Ruach Shtus. This is the spirit of folly that enters a human being. Like the sages say. A person can never sin unless a spirit of folly enters him. Where do you come to sin? How do you sin? How does a person come to sin? Because he has a very strong desire for things that are not good. Ubi-iker, leikol kach achemde b'fnei atzmei, ela hatainig v'haresicha, the koch, sheyesh lebinyanim agashmi, v'afilu b'dvarim amutorim. He says a very interesting thing. How do you sin? What brings a Jew to sin? A spirit of folly. On his own, a Jew would never sin. How could you neshama sin? How could a person sin? But it's a spirit of folly that enters him and tells him talks him in all kinds of silly things. It's okay, it's not the end of the world, you can be okay. But where does that come from? How does the spirit of folly able to get him? Because this person has tremendous desires for things that are unholy. And the Rebbe says that's not so much the desire itself, but the joy that you have in these things, and the passion you have for these things, even if they're permissible. We have a passion for permissible things. We're into it. We want it very much. What happens is, what does that do? When your passion is dedicated to things that are not holy, it sucks away your passion for holy things. You know, we say that when a person has 10 children, he has enough love for all 10. Right? You have one, you have love for that one child. When you have two, you have enough love for both. It's not like you're taking away from one for the other. It's not true. But in this thing, it is true. You can't love mundane, physical, material things with such passion and also have the same passion, the same love, and same desire for godliness. Well, if you have it here, it's coming from here. You can't be in both. You can't have a love for both. So when you have a tremendous passion for negative, not so much for negative even for positive, not positive, but permissible. And you're passionate about that. I got to get that car. I got to get that extra customer. I got to get that new gadget. I got to get this. I must go on that cruise. I must go to that movie. I must. And you're passionate about this, and you're into it. You enjoy it. That is sucking away the energy that you are supposed to have for godly things. That can lead, he says, that causes you to go from one level to the next. You get more into it and more into the physical, more into the mundane, more into the material. That to the point where you can become, where folly can enter you and cause you to even do something that is outright prohibited. What does this spirit of folly do to you? It tells you silly things. What is the silly thing it tells you? That sinning is not so bad. I'm still a Jew. I'm still okay. I'm fine, even if I sinned. Thinking that he's still a perfect Jew, it's okay. Now he comes full circle. That's why, how do you fix this spirit of folly that is totally irrational? How do you fix this irrational behavior?
Ignore it. Fight it.
By being irrational in a positive way. That was the atzei shitim, the acacia wood in the temple. The word in Hebrew for acacia wood is shitim. The word for folly is shtus. It's the same word. So how do you fight off the spirit of shtus in the negative? By having a spirit of shtus in the positive. And that's why God told you what kind of walls are you going to make? What's this mishkan going to be? This tabernacle going to be made of? Shitim wood. Wood of shtus. Meaning an aveda, a type of service that is totally irrational. Folly in the good way. Super rational, not irrational. Super rational. The negative is irrational. And the positive shtus is super rational. And this fixes the silliness of the folly that enters us, that causes us to sin. So now you have why the Beis Hamikdash was made out of that particular wood, because in Hebrew it has the same word as shtus, and it's telling us that the only way to undo the damage of the spirit of folly and the negative is through, that was the silliness. You have to also have something to counterpart that. Is that now the breaking, the subduing of the evil is the karbanos, is the sacrificial service. Questions?
A couple. Well, the spirit of folly is one and the same as the Yetzer Hara, or is it different?
The Yetzer Hara causes the spirit of folly to enter you. Yeah, same thing.
Okay, so the Yetzer Hara causes the spirit of folly to enter.
It is the spirit of folly.
Okay. And with trying to fight the Yetzer Hara with a super rational avoda, right, to Hashem. Let's say your sinning passion is for X. Obviously, your super rational has to be for that same concept X. Or can you just be super rational about
someone has
something?
An ear. He is totally obsessed with eating non-kosher. So how do you counter that? By being obsessed with eating kosher? No.
Okay.
Obsessed with eating kosher. What does that mean? Well, it could be. Yes, you have to counter it with to. Maybe it should be that from now on you're going to be kosher to such a degree that is beyond the rationale. You're going to go a step beyond. Maybe that's true. But it's not only in that, it's in everything.
In everything. Okay. So you can
because what caused you to eat non-kosher? What caused you to eat non-kosher? A spirit of folly. The spirit of folly is not so much about not eating kosher. The spirit of folly tells you, I'm okay with the sin. Mm-hmm. So you have a spirit of folly in there, you have to counterbalance that with a spirit of folly in holiness.
Mm-hmm. So something, as long as you grab onto that.
You're going beyond your normal, you're going beyond your comfort zone, beyond your normal abilities. You're going a step beyond.
Okay.
Yesh Lahesev, the Rebbe says we can add here. Shapiza, move on. This is obvious that this service of going beyond going beyond your normal self in the spirit of folly and holy, right? And holy folly is not only for specific people and in specific times. This is absolutely necessary for every single person's Aveda, because that's what causes you to sin, is the spirit of folly. How do you kill that spirit of folly? By the total opposite of that spirit of folly. It's every single person. Why is it so important in our divine service? Because that fixes the spirit of folly, which caused the damage to begin with, to sin. On the other hand, that is tzaddikim. It's not just for sinners, but it's also for tzaddikim. For righteous people have to have this level of service. Because when the sages say a person sins only because he has a spirit of folly, it's talking about any sin, even the smallest sin. Even tzaddikim have small infringements. So that also comes from a spirit of folly. So they also need to counterbalance that. It says like this, a tzaddik, it says that why do tzaddikim say al-chet? Al-chet is the confessional prayer on Yom Kippur. Or why do they say tachnun every day? I sinned, I this, I that. Yeah, well, a tzaddik didn't do that. Tzaddik doesn't have those sins. So why is he saying that? So it says there's a famous idea that at Mount Sinai every Jew became a guarantor and responsible for every other Jew. So when one Jew sins, it affects all Jews. So when the tzaddik says, Hashem, we sinned, he's not necessarily he. But since he is responsible for everyone else, so that person's sin also reflects on him. So therefore he could say Hashem. But the Rebbe is saying over here is that in truth, even a tzaddik has his own little something, which came from his spirit of folly, even a small one. He too therefore needs to do the counterbalancing of that by serving God with a super-rational service. Yeah.
I thought that the very definition of a tzaddik is someone who does not have the desire to sin.
True, that's true.
So what are you talking about this bissel?
No, so those tzaddikim don't sin. Those tzaddikim don't sin. Those tzaddikim indeed don't sin. When he talks about it here, the tzaddik is talking about the lower level tzaddikim, which do have a desire to sin. And even if those sins are not their fault. But your question is a very good question.
But you said they're responsible for everything.
Yeah, that's why they will say Tachnun, the confessional prayer, and Yom Kippur, and so on and so forth. Because
otherwise, they wouldn't have to pray at all.
They would have to pray maybe, but they wouldn't have to. Certainly wouldn't be able to say I stole and I cheated and I this and I that. I mean.
So there's no such thing as balance here. There's no balance.
Why is it? On the contrary.
Well, okay, I know you're balancing one thing for another.
So what do you mean there's no balance?
You have to.
Right. So when you say there's no balance, what do you mean by that?
Well, tzaddik is all holy.
Okay, tzaddik has gotten rid of his negative. You're right.
And we're the other.
What?
And we're the opposite.
We have not.
The other.
We have
The
not
others.
gotten rid of it. Very few such tzaddikim in the world.
Right.
No, I understand that, but I don't know why it has to be so to one way. You know,
what's the one
or
way?
the other.
Explain. I'm not sure. I'm just following. I don't think I understand your question. Why there has to be a balance?
No, why there is not a balance. Why there, everything has to be holy. I mean, we live on this earth. This earth is not holy. I know we're supposed to bring holiness.
This earth was holy and we messed it up.
Right.
It was holy and we messed it up. Mm-hmm. Now we have to make it holy again.
Uh-huh.
That's the idea.
Well, it's Adam and Eve that messed it up.
Well, we're their grandchildren.
Uh-huh.
So we're not either such tzaddikim. So they did and we continued. So we have to fix this problem, right? What's the problem? Right here he identified the problem. Mm-hmm. How do you solve a problem? By first knowing what the problem is. He identified the problem. There's a spirit of folly that enters each one of us. We act irrationally.
Or you're just talking about
anyone that sins. Anyone that sins. Let's talk Jews for now. Everyone. It's true with everyone. But we're zeroing in on us. The spirit of folly, because this Mamar is directed to Jews, because we talk about the neshama soon. But the spirit of folly is the problem. Where does a Jew come to sin? A person that has a neshama, how does he sin? See, we don't understand the problem. Of course, everyone sins. Like, well, why is the Rebbe even bothered by this question? Well, how do we sin? But I'll tell you how. I'll illustrate this question to you. I know.
I want.
But let me give you an example. If you saw a child being beaten up by his parents, thrown out of the house, she's starving, she doesn't want to give him food, she doesn't want to give him clothing, throws him out naked out of the house in the freezing weather. And you say, yeah, it's just a bad person. No. You're not going to say, it's just these bad people. This is the mother of the child. How does she do this? How does a mother of a child do this to a child? So you realize, wait a minute, there's something wrong here. How could this possibly be? There's a question here. It's not When you see someone beating up another person, fighting, lying, cheating, you don't ask a question. People cheat, people lie. It happens. When you see a person doing it to his own brother, he's cheating his mother, he's cheating his child. Whoa, this is something wrong here. How could that be? How does a person do this to his own family member? And that's the question over here. How does a Yid sin against God? How does that work? What's the mechanics of this? What is the mechanics of a mother cheating on her children? Cheating her children. What are the mechanics of this? Where does that come from? What emotion does that come from? Well, you're forced to say there's something wrong. This is an unhealthy situation. There's something wrong with this parent. There's something wrong with this child. If he's behaving this way towards his parents, there's something wrong. It's not a stranger, it's a parent. So what are the mechanics of someone doing such terrible things to their own children and parents? Oh, there's something's wrong. You got to get and take a psychologist to figure this out, right? So we realize we have a problem over here. We've got to identify what's the problem in order to fix it. When a Yid sins, there's a problem. The Rabbeim don't take for granted sin. Well, oh, sure, everyone sins. Yeah. No. What are the mechanics of this? A Yid has a neshama. How does he sin? How does this work? So the Rebbe says, wait, I'll tell you how it works. We have a physical side to ourselves. That physical side likes physical things. And sometimes they get carried away with the passion for those physical things. And to the point where even if it's permissible, to the point that drags them down altogether into physical mundane things. Then a spirit of folly enters him, a silliness enters him, and says, you can even cheat your father. You can even go against what God wants, against your neshama, against your very essence. So it's a spirit of folly, it's nishkana malamen, just something wrong here. The problem is, most mothers and children are normal, right? And therefore they don't behave like that towards each other. When you see one terrible situation, you say, whoa, what happened there? By us, every single Jew has a spirit of folly. That's how God created us. He created us with the ability to sin. Why? Because He wants us to subdue this sin. Because that's what gives them ultimate pleasure. When we subdue sin. And how do you get a Jew to subdue a sin? To subdue the negative? Only by giving sin and this negative an ability to raise its head within his system. And that's the spirit of folly. How do you fight that spirit of folly? The Rebbe says that again. He gives us the answer to that. By countering that spirit of folly with a spirit of folly, but in the positive. How does a mother that threw her kid out of in the cold without clothing fix that problem?
Just to bring him
Right
in.
then, next morning, making him on scrambled eggs. No. She has to show that kid such love to the point where it's beyond normal.
Mm-hmm.
Just the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
Just the opposite of what happened yesterday. Before when she was sick. He threw him out in the cold. Show him such love that's beyond normal. You acted crazy. Act crazy now in a good way. That's the counter. That's how you fix that. That's how you show that you're getting rid of that unhealthy emotion. At least spiritually it works that way. Whether a psychologist will tell a mother to do that, I don't know. But spiritually it works that way. You follow? והנה יקח שיש לסתרא אחרא לבנס אב בין שרוך שטוס עד שנפש הבא מסתוכל לחסס על נפש הליקיז הוא פרט בכלולוס הבריא של מסמלים על הלוקוס. The Rebbe takes this a step further now. He said, what did we just say? What's the mechanics of sin? And we answered that we have, that God wanted us to subdue evil. In order for us to subdue evil, He must create within us the possibility of evil in order to subdue it. And that is the spirit of folly that covers the truth. What's the truth? That a Yid can't sin And what does the spirit of folly tell us? No, you could sin and you're still a good Jew. Don't worry about it. You'll be fine. So he says this is all part of the general problem in our world. Our whole world has one big problem. What's the problem in our world? We're just a reflection of our bigger problem. What's the problem? God created this world. And usually when you create something, it's obvious who created it. Right? When Picasso paints a picture, you write Picasso on the bottom. Everyone knows it's a Picasso. Or whoever. God created a world in such a way where the world completely conceals his existence. He created a husk. There's a husk covering the truth. What's the truth? That God exists and only God exists. And he created a world that says the opposite. That maybe God doesn't exist. Or even if he does exist, the world, I certainly exist. This is the biggest lie that exists in this world. It's the biggest cover-up of the truth. God created a cover-up in the whole general creative reality. Part of that cover-up is within the Yid. That there could be a spirit of folly that covers his neshama and tells him, no, you can be a good Jew and you sin anyway. It's part of the bigger cover-up. As the famous statement, where is the statement in Hasidus, that from the created world's perspective, the world exists. That's a given. Now you have to figure out if God also exists. You have to think and figure out. The rabbi has to convince you. You have to convince yourself. Yeah, I believe in God too. But I believe that world is here. Sure, that's an obvious. That's a given. That's the biggest cover-up that there is. That's the biggest husk. That we exist, we take for granted our existence, and God's existence is like a novelty. You have to write books about it, and you have to explain it, and so on and so forth. You have to explain yourself that you get hungry sometimes. No, you get hungry. You know you're hungry. You know what you got to do. You got to go eat. You don't need books for that. It's a given. That's an obvious thing. We take that for granted, that we need to eat, we need to sleep, we need to this, we need to that, we need a vacation, we need money, we need comfort, we need everything. That we take for granted. That God exists, wait a minute, I'm not sure. Maybe yeah, maybe not. Okay, I believe it. And I get weak. The rabbi has to tell me again that it's 100% true, not 99%. It's a novelty. That's the biggest husk. That alone is the cover-up. How did this happen? That we think that we exist, and God, we have to convince ourselves. It's just the opposite. The only existence is God. Why did God create such a cover-up? It's in order for our service to mean something, to be meaningful. That our divine worship should be meaningful. So that we should be able to subdue the evil. In order for that to happen, you need a cover-up, you need a husk, you need evil. As it's explained in Tanya, that the God gave the negative, the ability, the unholy, the ability to rise up against the godly soul within a human being. He gave the Nefesh HaBahamis, his animal soul, the ability, the negative within us, the ability to counter the godly soul. And the reason for that is the balance. The reason is so that the godly soul should be strengthened itself and subdue the negative. And that way we have that way it's like God giving us the opportunity to serve Him. The only way to serve Him is if it's a challenge. If there's evil and good, you can choose good. Right? And subdue evil. Because God is the ultimate good, He wants to give us the ultimate good. How do you give a human being the ultimate good? That his service of God should not just be automatic. You didn't earn it. If you only have a drive to good, you're nothing. Then your good is not good. What is it? It's not good. If the only thing you can do is good, then it's not good. It's instinctive. It's automatic.
The angels.
It's like angels or like animals. Animals do good things. Yeah, I mean, they take care of their offspring. They feed their... But no one's going to say, wow, what a good animal. That's just the way it's programmed to be. It's a natural instinct. An animal can't serve, can't do anything good. Because it can't do anything wrong. An animal can't do anything wrong, could it?
Yeah.
An animal can do something wrong.
Be mean and
It can
bite.
Be.
Yeah.
It can bite, but that's not bad. You're not going to punish the
Survival.
animal. Would you punish the animal for biting?
Make on the rug.
Could you punish the animal for doing it?
Yes.
That's what you're supposed to do when you train. the
Training
dog
is
or
something
whatever.
else. Training is something else. Training is something
You
else.
still have to domesticate it if you live with it.
You don't draw. Okay, so that's not reward and punishment. It's training. Training is something else. You train a dolphin that when you make like this, it jumps up. When you do this, it jumps that way. That's not called. That's training. So a dog, you have to train that when it needs to, it should do this over here, not there. You know, an animal has no freedom of choice. Is that correct?
No.
They don't.
They do.
Nah, an animal doesn't have freedom of choice. No. An
Not
animal
in
does
the
not
same
have.
way as the human, but
Doesn't have at all. There's no evil and
They
good.
can't
There's no realm.
rationalize.
That's it. If you can't rationalize, then you don't have freedom of choice. Freedom of choice is based on
It's
rationalization.
instinctual.
It's instinctive. It's programmed. It's like a robot. It's not a robot. It has feelings. It has, but it doesn't have the
Still knows
ability
when it
to.
does something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't think an animal does anything wrong.
What about,
Yes,
what
an
about,
animal
what about
can't do
jumping
wrong.
all over you?
That's not wrong.
That's not
That's
wrong.
what animals do.
Instinctive.
That's what animals do.
Instinctive.
Yeah, that's what they're meant to do. You're not comfortable, so you get rid, you lock them outside. But that's not because you're punishing the animal. The animal doesn't
You
deserve
can
a
teach
punishment.
the animal, though.
You
to
can
not
teach
jump
it
on
certain
people.
things, sure. You can teach animals certain things. You can teach a dolphin to jump up when you do this. No, really, you can teach a lot of things. That's what all animal shows are. You taught an animal how to do certain things. Okay, so this is not the exact same thing, but my point is, an animal doesn't have freedom of choice. You need a rational mind
in order for it to be trained, it has freedom of choice. It can choose that, or it can be like a feral cat. I don't know.
Whatever.
There's a
Let's
difference
not
between a
get caught up.
domesticated cat and a feral cat.
There is a difference between domesticated
And-
animals and non-domesticated
Yeah.
animals, but that's what we call training.
Right. But in the wild, maybe there's no such thing as good and evil. You know
I don't
what I'm
think there's
saying?
good
But
and evil by
once you
animals.
bring it into the home,
There are predators and there are domesticated animals. The
Yeah.
predator is not bad, and the domesticated animal is not good. The predator is a predator because that's what it does. That's what it's meant to do. You don't say, "Whoa, you terrible animal! You just devoured a."
my dogs know when they do wrong. They get that look,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
And, you know.
it's true. I mean,
And
there's
they'll do
certain
things out of
things-
spite too. Like if you leave, they chew up.
There's things that
But they don't know they're doing anything wrong.
Oh yes,
Yes,
they
they
do.
do.
That's
Yes,
my
they do.
point.
Rabbi.
It's at a
Purpose,
conscious
they do.
level, not at an unconscious
unless
level.
you have.
Okay.
But there are certain.
I don't know if
there
they
are
know it's
certain
bad.
animals-
I don't know if they know it's evil.
There are certain
They
animals.
don't have an
that-
understanding
yeah,
that it's
they do.
evil.
Not between
They know
good
you're
and evil,
upset.
but
It's
bad
not
and
that.
good.
No, because they're
Evil is
upset
bad.
that you're leaving, so they'll do something
Okay.
purposely on them.
Yeah. Some animals, not all.
It's
Yeah,
something
anyway,
that
let's move
unless
on.
you have one, you would never comprehend.
But where we are over here, so but basically, in order to earn to accomplish, to serve God, you have to have the ability to say no to Him, to not serve
then
God.
what's a tzaddik? I mean, I don't know.
Tzaddik is a person
It's
that
a different
overcame
creature.
his evil. He wasn't born that way.
Okay, but
was
you
born
just
with the
said
ability.
that if you always do good,
That's because you got rid of your evil. That's a great accomplishment. That's what we should. I wish we could all do that.
But he's not talking about.
I'm not talking about tzaddikim. But the tzaddik wasn't born without a Yetzer Hara.
no.
No. The tzaddik was born with the ability to get rid of to transform himself.
Mm-hmm.
And he did. So that's already a person that reached. He served God to the ultimate degree. And he continues to serve because he has his own challenges within the realm of good. There's also challenges. Should he go beyond his limits? Should he go within his limits?
Yeah.
So since God is the essence of good, and He wants to give us, therefore, the ultimate good, so He made us our worship, our service of Him a meaningful one. When is it meaningful? When you have freedom of choice. And it should come through effort, not free lunch. If there's no challenge, it's a free lunch. If there's challenges, it's with effort. You've accomplished, you've overcome, now you did something. In order for there to be the real divine worship, which comes with effort, the world had to be created in such a way where there's a husk, a cover-up, where it's not obviously good, when the goodness and godliness is not obvious. We have to uncover it with great challenges. That's for our benefit. And that's why in the Torah God says, Moshe says to us in the name of God, look, I've put before you the path of life and good, and the path of death and not good, and you should choose good. But how do you choose good? When you have both paths in front of you. When you have good and evil. So therefore God created a world that has a husk, that has a cover-up, that conceals it, in order for there to be a realm that is negative and not good, and not godly. In order for us to subdue the godly. I'm sorry, to subdue the ungodly. Says the Rebbe, this is only a reason for why God created the world in such a way where He is concealed. The Rebbe is now going to ask a good question. We just learned why you need a husk, why you need a cover-up, why God has to be concealed. In order there should be negative. The question over here now is, how does this work? Meaning, I know why I need I need God to be covered. But how does He get covered? Who covers Him? How could something so insignificant like the physical world or creation, which is not a real existence, God is the real existence. How does an existence, a secondary, cover and conceal the ultimate existence, God? Or if we want to narrow it down to the Jew, our godly soul, that is godly. That's real. That is the truest existence within us. What is our animalistic drives? Those are only there so that we should be able to have the benefit of serving God with effort. So you need to balance that whole thing. In other words, it is not there for its own right. It's only there to help the godly soul accomplish. So it's not an ultimately real existence. It's not a true existence that's there for its own purpose and own needs. There's no real need for that. In other words, here you have truth, here you have an untruth. How does untruth cover truth? How does this work? How does a world cover the ultimate truth, the ultimate existence? The world is not a true existence, not the truest existence. It doesn't have to be here. God wants it. He doesn't want it. It won't be here. But God is the ultimate existence. How does something so I'm going to use the word untrue, unreal, cover something that is ultimately the most real and true existence? More importantly, yes, to the point, it's not just that covers it, to the point where the spirit of folly can so confuse a person, we can end up sinning. How could such a thing really happen? In other words, let's say this is the nefesh habahamis, the nefesh halikis, the godly soul, and this is the nefesh habahamis. And we're saying that this has such a power to not only cover this, to conceal the godly soul, but to completely confuse the human being in which this godly soul is enclosed, to get him to sin and completely drag down the godly soul. It's not just we're covering it in order for it to overcome. It can actually win this war. It can actually win. The spirit of folly can actually get you to sin. It's one thing if you tell me this is here, we're putting a curtain over this, so this should push its way through. In other words, more to get the godly soul to have a greater reward, a greater meaningful service. So you put a challenge and it overcomes it. Okay, I get that. That's alone a question. How could you really have a real cover over this? But here the question is furthermore. We're saying that the cover is so strong that it can win this war. It can win the battles. It's one thing you say that this will always win but I need a challenge in order for this to have some meaningful service. But this is real, therefore this will always win. But here we're saying not only is it covered and it needs to overcome something so unreal, but this unreal sometimes wins this. Follow the question. Mm-hmm. How does this work? How could this be?
But when the Mashiach comes, it's all going to be...
That's going to be done. The spirit of folly and the spirit of negative will all be removed.
But you won't have the opportunity to fight.
I know why he wants it this way, but how could this be real?
Well, it has to be.
Which means mitzvah.
Has to be because God wants it this way. But how does it work? That's the question. You can always answer God wants it so it works.
Right.
But what's the mechanics of this? How could something untrue, unsubstantial, conceal something true and substantial, and to the point where the concealment is to the degree where it doesn't let the truest and substantial force within us overcome?
Because we want it to be.
Who wants it to be?
We allow it as a human.
But it's a spirit of folly.
Right.
How does folly... That's the question. In other words, you have a substantial truth within you, and you have an untruth and unsubstantial reality within you, and this is stronger than that sometimes. How could this be? You're saying they were both equal, so there's a fight. So there's a fight.
Constant.
But they're not both equal. This is real, this is true, this is godly, this is false. This is nonsense. And this wins.
And it seems stronger.
It seems like it wins more than once or twice a day.
Yeah.
Maybe more than the other side winning. The Rebbe is asking a real question of how in the world does this work? How could this be?
Right. So how can it be?
That's what the continuation is going to talk about. I can go further if you want. The next chapter is a little long. Want to go a little further? 20 more minutes?
You want to do Parsha?
No, I'm going to continue
no.
this. You want to go further?
Whatever you
Yeah, we
want.
could do further.
We'll go a little further. Yuvim behagdim Hashem mitzvim benegel l'klolus ha'adam Evid avedim avar Rabbi Rurim chul. This will be understood by first prefacing that which we find regarding man in general. Find something in man, a general concept. Man is the one that does this, is the one that serves God. We find by man something very strange. What does man do all day long? What's his serve? What's our ultimate purpose? To subdue evil and to extract the good part of everything and bring it to holiness. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we're uncovering the sparks within the godly sparks within every created being, and we're elevating and uniting it with God. Right? When you use this table for a shul, for learning Torah, in it is godly sparks. So you uncover the godly sparks within, and you make it holy. What's interesting is that the human being's existence is dependent on that which he is supposed to perfect. For example, a person needs vegetation, he needs animals, he needs the inanimate in order to simply exist. To simply exist, you need every other part of creation. There are 4 parts of creation. Human being is the highest, the animal kingdom is the next, the growing trees, vegetation is the 3rd, and the lifeless, the inanimate is the 4th. A human being, which is on the top, needs all of these in order to exist. It's not like the animal also needs a human being. Why? The tree also needs a human being. Why does the tree need a human being? Because he needs the human being to elevate it, to bring it to its ultimate purpose. As is known, this is brought in the Kabbalah, that the ultimate of the inanimate is it should become part of the vegetation reality. The ultimate of vegetation is to become part of the animal reality. The ultimate of the animal is to be elevated to the level of the human. And through the human, everything gets elevated up to God. So everything needs the human in order to elevate it, to bring it to its ultimate purpose. But there's a big difference between us being dependent on the 3 lower levels, or those 3 lower levels being dependent on us. Those 3 levels are dependent on us only for their perfection, for them to reach their ultimate purpose. For that they need us to elevate them. But they don't need it in order to exist. A tree doesn't need a human being to exist. If all human beings disappeared today, trees would continue to exist. And stones would continue to exist. And animals would continue to exist. They don't need us for their existence. They need us for their perfection, for their elevation, for their ultimate purpose. But by the human being, it's not that way. By human beings' dependence on the lower 3 realities in creation is not just because through them he reaches his elevation, because they give him the opportunity to serve God. No, it's more than that. He simply can't exist without it. You need food, you need shelter, you need every other aspect of creation. Otherwise you would die. You wouldn't be able to exist. And why is that? כמו שלוש בטבעי למעלה רק על דרך זאת בפסיל נשאר למטה ודגמוס בנים שוב שם צדס ורצין לאס למעלה בדב בשור שמקרחו כבר בתיין כדי שתי נחז למטה בגוף גשמי סר בדם צמי חי גשמי כמי גוף גשמי אלא גם הנשמה צריכה even more. Within this question, he strengthens the question. Not only does our body need these lower creations, because if not, our soul would simply depart our body and we would die. So you could say that the neshama doesn't need these lower parts of the creation. It's our body that needs the lower parts of creation. Because without the body, the neshama would just depart from the body. Therefore it needs food to hold the neshama down. So it's for the body's, it's a necessity of the body more. No, he says it's not true. It's also the neshama needs these three levels. Why?
To elevate those. And your soul elevates when you do that.
The neshama needs the spark of godliness in the bread or in the table or in the whatever it is in order for it to exist. I want you to understand this.
In order for the neshama to exist?
What? In order for the neshama's existence. Yeah, let me explain. He continues. We're going to finish another 10 minutes. See, because it says in the pasuk, in the Torah, it says in the Chumash, the verse says it's not the bread alone through which man lives. It is through in the spark of godliness that's in that bread that makes man live. You need bread, right? So you think you need the flour and the water. No, you need much more. You need this. It's the spark of godliness that's in the bread that we need, through which we live. And the Baal Shem Tov explains based on this verse. Maybe a Baal Shem Tov Maharizal dar cheker meikshumayin u'v'chayis aneshama. Teina das neisen shei chayis aneshama lechem Michael Gashmi. Vein lemis dan sham michel lis bilichis bli mosnim ke my time in meverodim shei kam yom bli mos yoms berod. My time it takes aneshama machmas minis achila. The Baal Shem Tov quotes the Arizal. Arizal is Rabbi Yisroel, and he says an interesting thing. He said that the philosophers of his time all asked a basic, obvious question. What was the question? Where does the soul live from? The soul of a human being, how does it live? He says it can't seem possible that the soul is what needs the bread. Can't say a soul needs bread. That doesn't make sense. A soul needs bread. Or physical food. On the other hand, you can't say that the soul doesn't need it, because if you don't have bread for a few days, the person dies, and the soul doesn't. It departs. Mm-hmm. So what do we need this for? How could it be that a spiritual soul should live off a physical piece of bread? It's ridiculous. What's the answer? V'tiretz Arizal answered, they didn't understand the source of creation, what the underlying truth of creation, which is our sages tell us in the Mishnah that God created the world with 10 utterances. Pirish, the very utterance of God, let there be light, let there be trees, that brought everything into creation. And not only did it bring it into the creation, that becomes the life force of the creation presently. It's that godly life force, that spark of godliness, that godly energy that is in the particular creations that makes them exist. And that's the life, that life force that's in the bread, that's what keeps the neshama going. It's not the physical bread. It's the life force of God that's in the bread. Umeisha Sham Darizal adds, וזה שכוס ורבן גם סמאים, נפשם הם תיסעת ואין שהפוסם וביירסי בסורו ועד סום דלחיר, לא מיודם רוב צום למייכל משקה גשמי, וזו משום שהנפשם בהם תיסעת, ואין שהניצל קישו מייכל משקה נפשם, נמצא בהם בהלם בהם תיסעת. ועודם צורך לגלס הניצל כי פני שניצל שייך אליו. This he also explains why it says that man gets hungry for bread and he's thirsty for water. He asks the question, how could man be hungry for physical bread? Why should it be that way? Maybe the bread should be hungry for man. We're higher than it. Why are we hungry for things that are lower than us? Huh? It's a strange thing that God created in this creation. That higher levels are hungry for lower levels. It should be the other way around. But he answers, this is because it's the life that's in the bread, that is enclosed in the bread, that to which we are hungry. In other words, our neshama were allotted certain sparks of godliness in this world that it has to elevate. Now that spark belongs to your soul. Your soul feels feels the need to elevate that spark. That causes your stomach to be hungry for that. It's your neshama is hungry for bread. Your body is hungry for bread because your neshama is hungry for the spark that's in that bread, because it needs to elevate it. The bottom line is, what is it that we are living off? We're not living off physical bread. It's the godliness that's in the bread that we need.
So you have to say a bracha over it.
You have to say a bracha, sure.
Okay, but most people don't. So, so that means they don't have a neshama?
No, it doesn't mean they don't have a neshama. It means
okay,
they're not
you're saying
letting their neshama.
They're not elevating the sparks that they're supposed to.
No, he's right. She's right. That their neshama is hungry for those sparks. It's only that the person never learned about this, so he never didn't know you have to make a bracha.
They did learn about it.
Well, they're not
Okay, so then they're
elevating it.
choosing not to do it. Okay, that's a problem. That's a terrible problem.
But they're not
So
unlocking.
they're depriving the neshama. I know. They're depriving the neshama from the neshama wants to accomplish things in this world, and they're not letting it. It's a tragic situation. It's a tragic situation.
So if you don't feed your neshama, then
The
what?
neshama remains hungry. Almost finished. The Alter Rebbe explains the Alter Rebbe asks a good question. What did you just answer me? Why does a person need bread? No, he doesn't need the bread. He needs the life force that's in the bread. The question the Alter Rebbe asks is, but in the human being there's also a godly life force. So why can't they live off that life force? What does it need a lower life force? We also have a life force from God. What are we, chopped liver? We also have a godly life force that is in us, in each one of us. So why do we need the life force that's in this bread? In this cup, what in this coffee? Why can't we live off, why can't our soul and our body live off the life force that is in the human? Which we do have. And he answers. Oh, here he says an interesting thing. This is because, and this is leading up to answer the first question. This is because the life force, this godly spark that's in bread and in lower creations is a higher godly life force than the life force that's in the human. Believe it? Yeah? He's going to explain why, how that works. Kimvusham Baruch, as Alter Rebbe explains at great length. V'nimtze, and therefore it turns out, that's why man is dependent not on the lower levels, not only for his perfection and his ultimate purpose. He can serve God through these things, but for his very existence he needs it. Why? Because in those things is a higher godly life than within him himself.
Uh-huh.
How can that be?
Fascinating.
Ah, that's a good question.
Which we'll do next week.
You want to do it next week?